Never thought I'd be posting here, but I, male 35, just found out that my cousin Emma, female 33, only invited me to her wedding after party and not the actual ceremony, even though she was literally one of my wife's bridesmaids at our wedding 7 years ago. And I just found out all my other cousins are invited to the whole thing. I'm seriously losing it right now. So I got this invitation in the mail yesterday. Nice envelope, fancy paper, the whole thing. But when I opened it, I noticed it only mentioned the reception celebration following the ceremony with a start time of 8 p.m. At first, I figured it was a mistake or something, like maybe they forgot to include the ceremony details or whatever. I called my mom this morning to ask about it. More on that convo later, and she got all weird and awkward and was like, well, that's what they decided, and then immediately changed the subject to ask about my 3-year-old daughter's preschool. I mean, WTF. So after that weird convo with my mom, I texted Emma directly. We're not super close anymore, but we used to be when we were kids. She texted back saying they were keeping the ceremony small, just immediate family, which seemed reasonable until I was scrolling through Facebook later and saw my cousin Tyler commenting about how excited he was for the ceremony and how he and his wife just booked their hotel. Then, I saw my other cousins Mark and Jen talking about what they're wearing to the ceremony in the comments. So basically, all my other cousins and their spouses are invited to the whole thing. Just not me and my wife. Cool, cool, cool. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. This is kind of how it's always been with my family, but for some reason, this just hit different. Some backstory, I guess. My mom raised me by herself. My dad was apparently some summer fling who left town before knowing my mom was pregnant. At least that's what she's always told me. Mom worked her ass off. Medical billing specialist during the week and retail on weekends. Because she worked so much, I spent a ton of time with my grandmother growing up. And honestly, my grandma was amazing to me. But when my grandmother died, I was 15, things got weird. My uncle Robert, Mom's brother-in-law, literally blocked me from the private family viewing at the funeral. I showed up and he was at the door being like, sorry, immediate family only, which made no sense because I was her grandson. But I was just a kid, so I didn't argue. Then I found out months later, through Facebook photos, that they had a whole ash scattering ceremony that nobody told me about. And all these special items my grandma had promised would be mine someday, including this pocket watch that belonged to her father that she always said would be mine, somehow ended up with my other cousins. I got literally nothing. And ever since then, it's like, I'm family when it's convenient and not family when it's not. Like I'm invited to the big Christmas gathering, but always feel like an outsider. When my daughter was born 3 years ago, barely anyone from the family acknowledged it. Meanwhile, when my cousin Mark had his kid last year, they had this huge family gathering to welcome the newest member of the family, Barf. At holiday gatherings, my daughter gets mostly ignored while all the other kids get doted on. It's subtle enough that I spent years thinking maybe I was imagining it, but my wife notices it too. I regularly find out about family events after they happen, like my aunt's surprise 60th birthday party a couple years back that I saw on Instagram after the fact, or Tyler's graduation celebration last summer, always with the excuse of, oh, we thought you were busy, or it was last minute, or whatever. Just to be clear, I'm not some loser they're embarrassed by or something. I make good money as a project manager at a construction company. We own a nice 3-bedroom house in a good school district. My wife is a dental hygienist. We're stable, normal people. I don't need anything from my family financially. This isn't about money. So back to my call with my mom this morning. I asked about the invitation only mentioning the after party. She got awkward and said that's what Emma decided. When I asked if I wasn't invited to the ceremony, she said they had to make cuts because weddings are expensive. I mentioned that I saw on Facebook that my other cousins were going to the ceremony. She got uncomfortable and said she doesn't get involved in these decisions. When I asked if she was going to the ceremony, she said yes, but quickly changed the subject to my daughter's preschool. I tried to get back to why I'm excluded from family things, and she just told me I was being too sensitive. My wife says the pattern is obvious, and they've been treating me badly for years, and I should just decline the invitation entirely. My mom texted later saying I shouldn't make waves, and reminded me how hard she worked to raise me alone and how much she sacrificed, which, TF, does that have to do with anything? I honestly don't know what to do. Part of me wants to just show up at the ceremony anyway. part of me wants to skip the whole thing. Part of me wants to finally just ask someone in my family why I'm always treated differently. Has anyone dealt with family exclusion like this? Am I crazy for thinking there's something weird going on? Should I confront Emma or just let it go? Now for the first update. So it's been a couple of days since my last post. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented. Some of you said I needed to stop wondering and start confronting my family directly about this pattern of exclusion. And well, I did exactly that. And holy shit, I wish I hadn't. After reading all your comments, I decided I needed to document everything. Like, everything. I sat down and made this insanely detailed list of all the times I've been excluded over the years. I wanted concrete examples so my mom couldn't just dismiss me as being too sensitive again. Once I started writing, all these memories I'd pushed down came back. Like how I was the only cousin not invited to Uncle Robert's lake house for summer weekends. Or that time when I was 16 and everyone went to Disney World together. Or how when my cousin Mark got his driver's license, the whole family threw him this surprise party that I only found out about through Facebook photos weeks later. I filled up like 3 pages, front and back, with examples. So yesterday was Sunday, and my mom always does this Sunday dinner thing, which, funny enough, I'm only invited to about half the time. Added that to the list. I showed up with my list, determined to finally get some answers. My wife offered to come for moral support, but I decided to go alone. Probably should have brought her in retrospect. At first, it went exactly how I expected. I sat down at her kitchen table and told her I needed to talk about the pattern of exclusion in the family. She immediately got this look on her face, this mixture of annoyance and, fear, and started with the usual, "You're being too sensitive, and not everything is about you, Daniel." I'll admit, I kind of lost my cool a bit. I don't usually raise my voice with my mom, or anyone really, but I slammed my hand on the table and was like, "I have 3 pages of examples, Mom. This isn't in my head." She looked genuinely shocked that I pushed back. We went back and forth for literally hours. She kept trying to change the subject. I kept bringing it back to my list. I specifically brought up being blocked from Grandma's private viewing by Uncle Robert, and that seemed to really get to her. Finally, and I mean finally, after what felt like a full therapy session worth of arguing, she just started crying. Like really crying. Not the manipulative kind she sometimes does when she wants me to feel bad, but like full body sobbing. I actually felt bad for pushing so hard. That's when she told me, "My dad isn't who she said he was. He wasn't some random summer fling who left town before knowing about the pregnancy. He's someone connected to the family." That's literally how she phrased it. Connected to the family. What the actual F? When I asked her to be specific, she begged me not to investigate further. Like literally grabbed my hands and pleaded with me saying, some secrets should stay buried for everyone's sake. I couldn't sleep at all the last few nights. My mind was racing with possibilities. Was it one of my uncles? A family friend? Someone married into the family? I kept thinking about all those family gatherings where I felt like an outsider, wondering if my biological father was in the room, looking at me, but never acknowledging me. After 3 nights of barely sleeping, seriously, I think I got maybe 4 hours total, I decided F it, I needed answers. My Aunt Patricia has always been sort of the family matriarch since my grandmother died. She's the one who organizes all the family events, the ones I'm conveniently not invited to half the time. So on Wednesday evening, I just showed up at her house. Didn't call ahead or nothing, just drove over after work. Random tangent, but her house always smells like those cinnamon pine cone air fresheners. I used to think it was nice and homey when I was a kid, but now it just seems fake and sickly sweet. When she opened the door, she looked surprised, but invited me in. I didn't waste time. As soon as we sat down in her living room, with the weird floral couch that's been there since I was a kid, I just asked her point blank if she knew who my biological father was. She immediately went pale. She tried to play dumb at first, saying she doesn't know what you're talking about, and that my mother has always been a bit dramatic. When I mentioned Mom's partial confession, she actually tried to call my mom right there in front of me. I had to physically reach over and press the end call button on her phone. I told her that if she wouldn't tell me the truth, I'd just ask every single family member individually until someone did. She got up and poured herself this massive glass of wine with shaking hands. That's when I knew whatever she was about to say was going to be bad. And it was bad. My biological father is her husband, Uncle Robert. My Uncle Robert. The same Uncle Robert who blocked me from my grandmother's funeral viewing. The same Uncle Robert who's been treating me like an unwanted house guest at family functions for 20 years. I honestly just sat there in complete shock while she explained. Apparently, the affair happened while she was pregnant with their second kid. She found out about it when I was around 2 years old, which explained why I have some early memories of being at their house, but very few after that. The craziest part, my grandmother figured it out when I was about 5 years old. Apparently, I repeated something I'd heard my mom and Uncle Robert say to each other, and it was specific enough that my grandmother put the pieces together. Aunt Patricia didn't tell me what I'd said exactly. Instead of rejecting me, my grandmother apparently secretly favored me after learning the truth. Patricia said it caused a lot of resentment in the family because people noticed Grandma treating me special but didn't know why. Patricia said Grandma felt guilty about how she'd treated her, Patricia, growing up, and somehow blamed herself for the affair. Like, what kind of twisted logic is that? After my grandmother died, the family collectively decided to distance themselves from me. Not cut me off completely, that would be too obvious, but just exclude me from enough things to keep me at arm's length, especially from anything involving Uncle Robert directly. The fallout has been insane. Emma called me the next day sounding panicked, not sympathetic. She admitted her parents, my aunt and uncle, pressured her to limit my role in the wedding. My mom has called me like 20 times saying I'm destroying the family and need to let this go. And my lovely uncle, Robert, hasn't even had the decency to talk to me directly. He sent a text through my aunt denying everything and threatening to cut off my mom financially if I continue spreading lies. I've been drinking a lot since finding all this out. Like, a lot. I went through an entire bottle of whiskey this weekend. I keep telling myself it's just to help me sleep, but my wife is getting worried. She's been super supportive through all of this, but she's concerned about how much I'm drinking and how obsessed I'm becoming with my family history. I'm planning to meet with Emma privately next week. She agreed to talk to me without her parents present, and I'm hoping she might be more forthcoming that way. I need to understand how long she's known and what else the family has been hiding from me. I seriously feel like my entire life has been a lie. Every family memory is now ruined. I keep thinking about all those times Uncle Robert was cold to me or kept me at a distance, knowing I was his son. What kind of monster does that to their own child? Edit. Some of you have asked if I'm going to confront Uncle Robert directly. Honestly, I'm not ready for that yet. The thought of facing him makes me feel physically sick. Maybe after I talk to Emma. Edit 2. A few people have suggested DNA tests. I don't need one. The timeline fits. And my aunt had no reason to lie about this. But yeah, I might do one anyway, just to have proof. Edit 3. For those asking what my wife thinks, she's furious on my behalf, but also worried about me. She thinks I should talk to a therapist before I do anything else. But I'm not sure talking about this with some random stranger is going to help. Like, what are they going to say? That sucks. How does that make you feel? I know how it makes me feel. Edit 4. Yes, I realize now that the exclusion from family events makes a twisted kind of sense. They were trying to minimize how much time I spent around my biological father while still maintaining appearances. Still fed up though. Edit 5. To the people saying I should sue for inheritance from my grandmother, I have no idea if that's even possible after 20 years, but I am wondering now if she left me anything in her will that I never received. Aunt Patricia handled the estate after Grandma died. Edit 6. Okay, I should clarify the conversation with my aunt a bit more since some people are asking. When she finally admitted everything, I just sat there in complete silence. I think I was in shock. She was going on and on about how it was a one-time mistake, which I don't believe at all, by the way. She seemed more concerned about her own embarrassment than how I felt finding this out. When I asked why my grandma favored me if I was basically the product of this huge betrayal, that's when she told me about how Grandma blamed herself for how she'd raised Patricia. Something about being too cold and critical. I don't know. It was hard to follow her logic. When I asked why they excluded me after Grandma died, she actually admitted the family collectively decided to distance themselves, like they had an actual conversation about it. Right as she was telling me this part, we heard my uncle's car pull into the driveway, and I just left. I couldn't face him yet. Not ready for that. Now for the second update. So it's been a few weeks since my last post. A lot of you were asking if I was okay after finding out my uncle, Robert, is actually my biological father. The answer is no, I'm not okay. Not even close. So I mentioned in my last update that I was planning to meet with Emma privately to try and understand how long she's known about all this and what else the family might be hiding. Well, that meeting happened last week and it was a complete disaster. We agreed to meet at this coffee shop that's kind of halfway between our houses. I got there early and was sitting there all nervous, had already downed like 2 coffees before she even showed up. And then, instead of coming alone like we specifically agreed, she walks in with her fiancé. Like WTF. I immediately knew this was going to go badly. The first thing she says isn't even hello, it's, I only have 30 minutes, while checking her watch. Her fiancé just sits there with this uncomfortable look the whole time. I tried to stay calm, even though I was already pissed about her bringing someone. I just asked her straight up how long she's known about my dad. Still feels weird to call Uncle Robert that. She actually rolled her eyes at me. Rolled her eyes. Then she said she's known since she was 16. That's 17 years she's known and never said anything. She overheard her parents arguing about it one night. When I asked about the wedding invitation, she admitted it was totally deliberate. Her parents basically threatened to pull their financial support for the wedding if I was invited to the ceremony. They're literally paying her to exclude me. I got pretty upset. When I called her out for going along with this whole thing all these years, she got super defensive. She said I always make everything about me and that this was her wedding. I told her this wasn't about her wedding, but about decades of lies. She said I was overreacting, like my mother. That was it for me. I don't even remember exactly what I said next. I just grabbed my jacket and walked out. About an hour later, I got a text from Emma saying she was taking back my invitation to even the after party. Like I would even want to go at this point. So yeah, meeting with Emma equals complete disaster. The family fallout has been intense. Most of them are either avoiding me completely or sending weird texts about how I'm tearing the family apart. My uncle Robert hasn't even talked to me directly. Everything comes through my aunt or through my mom. He's still denying everything, even though my aunt literally confessed it all. It's insane. I did get a couple texts from my cousins Mark and Jen saying they know I've been treated unfairly, but of course they won't say anything publicly. Too afraid of getting cut off, I guess. My mom has been the worst part, honestly. She keeps switching between begging me to just drop everything and blaming me for causing all this. Like, I'm not the one who had an affair and then lied about it for 35 years. How am I the bad guy here? Oh, and here's a fun little detail. I was cleaning out my closet last weekend. My wife says I'm stress organizing, which is probably true, and I found this old baseball glove that Uncle Robert gave me for my 8th birthday. I used to think that was one of the few times he was actually nice to me. Now I'm realizing he probably felt guilty. I threw the glove in the trash. Last week I got this anonymous email from someone claiming to be Maria, my aunt and uncle's longtime housekeeper. She's worked for them for like 30 plus years, since before I was even born. The email had these old photos attached, pictures of my mom and Uncle Robert together at various family events when I was really little, like 2 or 3 years old. In some of them, they're standing way too close. The housekeeper said the affair wasn't just some one-time thing, like my aunt claimed. It went on for years. She even included dates and times she remembers them being together when my aunt was out of town. And get this, she says my uncle was actually present at a bunch of events from my early childhood, which completely contradicts what my family has been saying about him not being involved in my life. Side note, why does every major revelation in my life come from other people? Why couldn't my own mother just tell me the truth from the beginning? But the most disturbing part of the email, Maria hinted that my younger cousin Jessica, female, 26, might also be Uncle Robert's kid. Apparently, she's always been slightly excluded from family stuff too, just not as obviously as me. I've honestly never paid much attention to Jessica. She's quite a bit younger, and we never really bonded. But now I'm looking at old family photos, and yeah, there's definitely a resemblance between us that I never noticed before. Maria said she couldn't stay silent anymore after watching how they've treated me for decades. She feels guilty for not speaking up sooner. With this new info, I confronted my mom again. This time, I didn't let her change the subject or guilt trip me. After hours of back and forth and a lot of crying on her part, She finally admitted that she's been receiving support payments from my aunt and uncle for years, basically hush money. She also confirmed something I had started to suspect after talking to Maria. My grandmother did leave me specific items and money in her will, but my Aunt Patricia, who handled the estate, gave everything to the other grandkids. That pocket watch I mentioned in my first post, the one my grandmother always said would be mine someday. It was actually left to me in her will, but somehow ended up with my cousin Tyler. I was so angry I did something probably stupid. There was this family dinner happening at my aunt and uncle's house on Sunday, which I wasn't invited to. I decided to just show up, uninvited, with printouts of everything Maria had sent me. So I walk in, and everyone goes quiet. I drop this folder of evidence right on the dining table, and my uncle immediately stands up and tells me to leave. I refused and started passing out copies of the photos to everyone. My aunt was trying to collect them back while telling people not to look. Someone must have called my mom because she showed up about 10 minutes into this whole scene. That's when it got really ugly. My uncle called my mom unstable and a blackmailer right in front of everyone. I lost it and told everyone what Maria had shared about the years-long affair and how my uncle had actually been present in my early life. My uncle admitted to the financial support, but claimed it was out of generosity and not because I was his son. Then I pulled out the copy of my grandmother's amended will that Maria had somehow gotten hold of. Jessica kept looking between me and my uncle. She finally asked what all this meant about her. My uncle completely lost it then, started threatening legal action. At that point, my cousins Mark and Tyler actually stood between me and my uncle. I told everyone I was already talking to lawyers about the inheritance issue, and then I said I was done with their secrets and lies and walked out. As I was leaving, I could hear them all arguing. That was a month ago, and here's where things stand now. My uncle and aunt still haven't apologized and are still claiming my mother is mentally ill and making things up, despite all the evidence. Emma's wedding went ahead without me last weekend. My cousin Mark, who did attend, texted me that it was super tense and the family was clearly divided. My mom had a complete breakdown and is now staying with her sister, my aunt Karen, who's the only relatively normal one in the family. She finally admitted that my grandmother left me a pretty significant inheritance that my aunt intercepted. I've got a lawyer now, and we're pursuing legal action about the inheritance stuff. Maria, the housekeeper, has agreed to provide a formal statement. Jessica, the cousin, who might also be my half-sister, reached out to me last week. We met for coffee and had a really intense conversation. We're slowly getting to know each other. Maria gave me a letter my grandmother had apparently written to me before she died. My aunt was supposed to give it to me, but obviously never did. It's hard to read. She expressed how much she loved me and how sorry she was about all the family problems I've been throwing myself into work lately, rather than actually processing my emotions. My wife says I'm compartmentalizing, but whatever works, right? My relationship with my mom is still pretty damaged. I see her occasionally, but the trust is just gone. How do you trust someone who's lied to you your entire life? The legal battle is moving forward. It's not about the money. It's about them finally facing consequences for what they did. Though I won't lie, if there is a settlement, it would help fund my daughter's college education someday. My wife keeps suggesting therapy, but I've refused so far. Talking about my feelings with some random stranger isn't going to fix what they did. Nothing will.